Okay, I guess we can get started a little bit. So welcome everybody to this questions and QA questions and answers about work-life balance during COVID. Now everything has changed. It has been hard before, but now there is no clear division of where you're at work or not, and things have been a little more challenging for us, all of us. So first, thank you everybody who submitted the survey, questions to the survey. We received many questions that were super interesting. So thank you so much for sharing that. Paige Parks is from the Women in Science Committee, and she will be she will be coordinating the talk today, and she will be handling these questions to Darshan Mehta, that is the director of the Office of Wellbeing here at MCH. Also, thank you so much, Darshan, for being here with us today. So if just quickly, if you didn't submit questions on the survey, it doesn't mean that you are not allowed to ask questions. This is just like the questions that we have before to kind of organize this. But feel free to ask questions during the talk. You can submit questions to a QA. We will unmute you to let you make the question yourself. But it's just to figure out who is asking the question. And at the end, we will also have time for general questions. So with that, I'm gonna give the word to Paige. Is that okay?
So folks, I'd like to introduce Darshan, who's here today, again, from the Office of Wellbeing. He's very graciously agreed to answer some of our questions about kind of this new normal, this bizarre time that we're living in. So thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the podium, so to speak, over to you to go through some of the slides that you've prepared, and then we'll transfer into our question and answer session.
Okay, great. Well, thank you to Viv and Paige for inviting me. And I'm really, really happy to be with all of you. And again, this is, I just have a few slides more to just sort of make sure that there is, everyone is aware of all of some of the resources. We've tried to do a pretty good job of capturing all of them, but again, ultimately, we don't know what we don't know. So if you recognize, hey, there's also this resource, we definitely want to know about it. And that way we can also make sure that others are connected to it as well. So as was mentioned, so my name is Darshan Mehta. I'm a general internist. I wear several different hats here at most sort of, for a number of, I still am, and for a number of years, I've been the medical director of the Benson Henry Institute for Mind and Body Medicine at Mass General. As I mentioned, I'm a general internal medicine physician, and then most recently, just beginning in the month of April, stepped into this new role as the interim director for the Office for Wellbeing in the Center for Faculty Development. It's a newly created office under the direction of Dr. Miriam Bradella, who is the director for the Center for Faculty Development. And it's really, obviously, I did not come into the role anticipating COVID, so this has all been a transition and for me as well. And I'm learning. So I think one of the key things, if there's one takeaway point I will just say to all of you, is that we're all learning together in this. And the most important thing, if there's one thing, is just reach out and ask for help and support. And hopefully, we are one such office where it is a space, and I'll get into a little bit more details about the office itself, but it's meant to really be a safe space for you to ask for help and support. And certainly in my job, if I don't know the answers, I will try to find out who does. So with that, sort of the backdrop. So just want to orient you to the Center for Faculty Development Leadership. As I mentioned, the director is Miriam Bradella. Maura Lane is the executive director, also new into this role. So there are a lot of new individuals. And again, not knowing the makeup of who is in the participant, you can have touch points in multiple ways. And all of us have just recently met with each other and got to know us. There are some people who have been in these roles for quite some time. So for example, some of you may have met with individuals as well. Ted Stern is the director of the Office for Clinical Careers. Nancy Rigatti is the director in the Office for Women's Careers. Both of them have been in these roles for some amount of time. Dr. Goldberg, Marcia Goldberg, is the director of the Office for Research Careers. She...
Darshan, we have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Joseph, if you want to unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Or if Joseph wants to type it into the chat, we can also do it that way too, if it's easier.
Yeah, I guess you can continue.
Okay, okay. Yeah, Joseph, go ahead. And, yeah, if you type it in the chat, then maybe it may be something.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. Maybe we got Zoom bombed here. Huh?
Chat.
Okay. Okay. Anyways. Okay. Yes. So I think that's a first for me. So you talk about different stressors, right, in a presentation. Anyways, as I was saying, so Dr. Marcia Goldberg is the director of the Office for Research Careers. Dr. Mary Buxane is the head of the graduate student division, and then the postdoctoral division is Dr. Bakos Tanos. All of these really very experienced senior people, really committed to the well-being, I would say, of the different types of individuals in the you know, in the thing. So I think I'm seeing another question, but I think maybe if you can put it into the chat, that would be probably easiest. Yeah. So, okay. So the Center for Faculty Development, the mission of it is to facilitate the career advancement and job satisfaction of faculty, research fellows, and graduate students at Mass General. And as you probably, if you're not getting emails, that's one easy place to let us know. Again, you should be getting emails from the Center for Faculty Development. You should be seeing all of them. There's sort of different areas of emphasis to develop and implement programs for faculty and trainees at all stages in their careers, from early careers to senior leadership, that promote academic and career development. It's to provide information, education, and resources to enhance faculty effectiveness, provide support and education regarding the academic promotion process, and provide individual counseling, advice, and support. And again, these are meant to be really safe spaces. And Dr. Berdella, I can say very confidently, is committed to that. And so again, this is really meant in the service of your well-being, especially around your professional careers and opportunity and how you get promoted at Mass General. And Dr. Berdella is particularly what is really a particular area of passion of hers is academic bullying, and she really desires to make sure that all of the faculty here are supported. And then when I say faculty, and I include trainees at all stages of their careers. I'm just going to make sure the reason, again, going through all this is to make sure that all of you just know the different individuals here. Dr. Ted Stern is his job is to facilitate the career advancement and promotion of clinical faculty and trainees at MGH. And again, those of you who've ever if you've ever met with him, he is very meticulous in sort of examining one's individual CV. And so his areas of emphasis is to develop and implement programs to promote career development, support an education and promotion process. Those of you who are, if you're a clinician here, how you enhance your clinical practice, obviously work-life balance, and provide individual counseling and support. The Office for Research Careers, again, this is Dr. Marcia Goldberg, again, a very senior member here at MGH. Her role is really to address the specific needs of research faculty and trainees. Again, develop programs to advance career development pathways of research faculty, to strengthen career guidance and mentoring offered to trainees, and enhance communication within the research community, and provide individual counseling, advice, and support. And I really see her as somebody, again, you know, those of you, for example, who are writing grant awards and such, and you need to know who to, you know, where are spaces or places to go to. She is definitely one important resource you can seek out. In the postdoctoral division, this is Dr. Bakos Tanos, to enhance postdoctoral training and career development, again, provide programming for career advancement, skill development, networking opportunities. Really, there's the policies here at MGH, and he's the point of contact for postdoc fellows for information, resources, and issues, and again, provides individual counseling, advice, and support, especially around the job search process. Dr. Mary Buxane is really, her area of focus is on the graduate students at MGH, providing program services and resources, really creating a sense of community, enhancing the overall experience of students affiliated with MGH, and attract more graduate students to MGH, establish relationships with the graduate schools as well. So again, those of you who work across the quad, you know, at HMS and other sort of institutions here, again, she is the important point person. And then again, our office here, the Office for Wellbeing, again, the mission is to improve well-being across the career span by designing initiatives to improve resilience and create a positive work culture that supports well-being. In the area of emphasis, you know, what we do is really provide individual consultations to clinical and research faculty, postdocs, and graduate students, and the emphasis is really on a holistic approach to well-being, including intellectual, emotional, and physical health. And if you haven't been to the Center for Faculty Development website, one of the important things that we've already done is to really provide a one-stop shop where the resources for self-care, and we work across resources across MGH and partners. So that's, again, another individual. And then Dr. Nancy Brigatti is the director of the Office for Women's Careers, to facilitate career advancement of women faculty and trainees at MGH. And again, the commitment to have increased number of women faculty promoted by academic criteria, increase retention and job satisfaction, and promote career development and work-life balance. And she's a very, very, she's been here a long time, and is very, again, another place of very important support for those of you who might benefit from that resource. So one thing that Dr. Berdella has put into place, some of you may have seen it, is this new website called the Mass General Brigham Community Health website. And the link is, and these slides will be available to all of you. If anyone who wants it, we can make these available. And this is really a way for employees to support each other if you live in the same neighborhood. And so if you click on this link, what you will see is you can post a request for help or volunteer to help. And so like things like, you know, walking dog or grocery shopping. Again, in the era of COVID, this is even more important. And sometimes you don't realize that you have colleagues just in your neighborhood, and you could help and support each other. So this is an amazing website. We actually have learned from this thus far that most people, we have just a vibrant number of individuals who are willing to give help. I think fewer people have asked for help, and perhaps that's a new shift in culture, that we have to be okay in asking for help. But we have a lot of people who have been willing to give support and help. And so again, encourage you to look at this website. It's a live website in real time, and again, it's around the map of the greater Boston area. So here's how you find us. Again, if you go to the website at massgeneral.org, faculty development, you're going to see the link. In all of the offices, you should be able to make appointments pretty easily. I mean, with our office, it's literally you just click on a link. You will have pretty much direct access into my calendar, and you can just pop yourself based on a convenient time for you in terms of openings, and then you'll get an automatic Zoom link back with the info of our meeting time and such. So it's very easy. The other important thing to just reiterate is these are really off the record, confidential conversations. Again, any support that is needed, or if there are any resources that need to be sought out, we would do it together in collaboration. And that way, it's meant for you to really feel empowered as a way to be able to take charge of your well-being professionally and personally. And certainly, if I am a clinician, and if I do think like you would benefit from clinical services, that's not the intent of these consults. But if there is anything that we can always, again, I can refer you to the appropriate colleague, or at least make sure that you know how to access the supports that you need as well. So I think, let me see, that is it. Let me just talk a little bit more about just the office. One of the things in the office I just want to sort of just touch upon are the different factors that contribute to resilience. And again, in the era of COVID, I think some of these things are even more important, and we just need to sort of think creativity. So obviously optimism, and we see these themes, again, if you read the MGH broadcast or the Progress broadcast, there's a lot of optimism that is written in those notes. And part of it is because we know that if you start to really understand that for your own self, what does optimism look like for you, that actually contributes to resilience. Again, facing our fears. Again, we have a very real fear in front of us right now in COVID, and it affects you in different ways, which include obviously in your research careers, obviously work-life balance, and we'll get to some of the questions that you've already asked. There's also a sense of moral compass, like what is the right thing to do at this time? That's what and again, the more you feel that your decisions that you're making are aligned with your values, that actually will support you. Spirituality is your sense of how do you connect with something greater than the self? Again, it's a sense of like something bigger than just you. And again, that's another factor. And so some people may find it in their faith community, but others may find it in nature, or some may find it in some other sort of space. Again, the idea of something being connected to something bigger than yourself. Social support, again, we are all here in this meeting together. Social support is such an important theme, and how we, in terms of how we feel connected. Again, we call it social distancing, but really it's about physical distancing, but remaining socially connected. Role models, again, for some of us that could be our mentors, others it may not be. But again, just thinking about where do you find that sort of aspiration, who inspires you to do something more, and being connected to those individuals. Again, physical exercise, again, cannot be overstated. Again, it's important to to have movement. It's very easy when we're stuck indoors to not be moving, and that really can decrease resilience. So again, the idea is like what keeps you physically moving, mentally. Again, those of you, again, for those of you, especially in research arenas, you're constantly doing this, and you feel like, again, if it's, how do you continuously invite curiosity and think about, and being sort of intrigued and wanting to understand a little bit more, or how do you study this a little bit more? And that's what sort of keeps that drive going. Flexibility and acceptance, again, thinking about what allows us to have flexibility. Sometimes accepting things, like if right now labs are shut down, there was a sense of acceptance there for some of you. And how do you then, are you able to sort of not do that as a place of feeling resignation or defeat, but really as a space of feeling grounded, and how do you move from that space and make create new opportunities? And then finally, meaning and purpose. What's the whole point of all of this anyways? And that's one of the things, again, resiliency is often built upon this notion of people are able to find meaning and purpose, and hopefully, again, in an appropriate way, that even these situations, like being in this crisis, allows you to find some new space of meaning and purpose. And some of you may have found it, and others of you may still be looking for that. So one of the approaches that we think about when we're promoting wellness and resilience are really different sort of, and we will be offering programming in these types of arenas. So again, integrating sort of body, breath, and mind, mindfulness, understanding our cognitive distortion, that's sort of that desire to be perfectionist or all or nothing thinking, using acceptance and commitment approaches, sleep, stress reduction and movement, healthy nutrition, and again, and creative arts. And again, we try to touch upon these because the evidence has supported each one of these different dimensions. And some of you may already have this in place in practice. So again, nutrition is important. I can say for my own self, that has been a new discovery in this COVID. Like being at home a lot more than I'm used to, I've rediscovered my kitchen in a way that I had not anticipated. I have a young daughter, and she, as a 4-year-old, has motivated me to learn better cooking skills. And so there was no better feeling than my chair of medicine, giving a town hall and telling everyone to be on, have their video feed off. And it was over the lunch hour, and I was cooking, and that was one of these very surreal, but actually felt very good to be able to do that. Creative arts, again, some of you are gifted in this arena, and you know the power and this comes in the form of writing, music, poetry, arts, fine arts, and others, and then there are just ways that are not even so sort of the usual things we think of creative arts, but even things like, we think about humor, or even just the ways in which we might bring people together. Again, so this is another thing to think about. Mindfulness, again, that's sort of my area of expertise in terms of what I do on the clinical side, but we know that these approaches, when brought in a very intentional way, leads to positive health behaviors, and it facilitates better interpersonal relations, facilitates perspective taking as well. Movement is important. Again, some of you may have a practice like in yoga or Tai Chi or other exercise practices, but we know that these practices support resilient and healthy activities. Again, sleep is so important. One of the things, at least for me, a new discovery was that I'm on the laptop way more now than I've ever been on because of all these Zoom meetings and such. And my sleep is off, and I had to accept, and I had to learn, how do I take care of myself with this, because of the amount of blue light exposure that is happening as a result of being on a device so much more. So as we begin to think about this, flourishing, and this is flourishing is an important concept that has been expounded at the Harvard School of Public Health. But there are these different domains, again, thinking about relationships, character and virtue, meaning and purpose, happiness and life satisfaction. Again, what are the things that, and we know that these things actually affect how we flourish. And obviously even finances are very important as well. So I don't want to minimize that by any means. That is important for well-being. So in our consultation, really we use coaching approaches, goal setting, really approaches thinking we can talk about wellness, finding resources, transitions. I've already had conversations with faculty about retirement, as well as at the beginning of the career spectrum as well, and personal resilience. There are different programs that some of you may be aware of. You see, I mean, we get so many blasts right now, but you'll see that there are asynchronous learning opportunities of skill building sessions, as well as live activities. And again, you can go to any, I mean, recent partners broadcasts and the MJ broadcasts have just shown these different opportunities. And if you have any challenges finding them, but they're really meant to be skills building opportunities. And some of are asynchronous, meaning you do it on your own, and others are live. So we have like groups of 8 or 10 employees, different types of clinicians, researchers, and such. And that's this one, as I mentioned here, it's based on the program that we've developed at the Benson Henry Institute for Mind-Body Medicine. Okay, so I think I'll stop there. We depending on time, we have I'll lead a mind-body exercise, but I figured I want to open up for questions. Again, the Office for Wellbeing should be very easy to access, and we can literally, to make an appointment is I think even easier, and hopefully all of you please don't hesitate to reach out. So let me stop there for a moment, and then let's open. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Darshan. We're really excited to have you here, and really appreciate all the information that you've connected us with. I will be signing up for an appointment right after this. So we put together a couple of questions from the community, the Martinos community, in terms of our attendees. We're going to switch a little bit, and if you want to ask a question, you can ask through the question and answer, and then we'll choose which ones we answer once we have gone through some of the pre-existing questions. So I'm going to go ahead and share those with everyone. And then if you don't mind answering them to the best of your ability. Let's go. So I also put together a quick little intro for you, but you've introduced yourself, so we don't need to continue with that. So one question that we had from a lot of folks is, what is a work-life balance? I think that specifically in academia, folks kind of struggle with this idea of the 40-hour work week, and if that is achievable, if that's what other people are doing. And then once we figure out what's kind of normal or what is expected, how do you set boundaries with others in a professional environment, whether it's your boss or your coworker who's, calling you at 7 p.m. once you've already logged off for the day?
It's a great question. So I think certainly, as I can say as a physician, 40-hour work week is not the norm. Although I know people try to make it somewhat of a norm, but it is definitely not a norm for a full-time physician at MGH. And I think in academics, again, I would maybe reframe the question, right? So what does success look for you? And I think from there, you backtrack. So for some people, it is about, okay, it is writing you start with your K award, your R awards, other foundation, like all these different, like you're kind of, there's sort of like this pathway that you want to, and that's what you are set out to do. For others, it could be that, I'm going to finish this my postdoc, and then I'm going to go into industry. That's what I'd like to do. And for others, there may be even a whole nother thing that say, look, I really care to not run a lab, but I want to be sort of a core member of a lab and be supported by somebody else, right? So that's and all these there are these options and multiple permutations, combinations. So I think what's important is, again, in a consultation like this, like one of the things we want is for you, what does success look like? Because that will sort of dictate, that's where you're going to find your sense of happiness. And in that sense, hours don't really matter, right? I mean, you're going to know like what gives you success in multiple domains. Like it gives you a sense of professional fulfillment and personal fulfillment as well. And again, and making sure that one isn't encroaching upon the other. So again, and some of you may have already experienced this, that if you, sometimes you, it's a very stressful thing to do, is that if you're feeling professionally fulfilled, but that is then in conflict with your sort of what's going on in your home environment. And that can be very stressful for some of you. And for others, it may be the opposite. Like you're really bored in your professional environment and you love being at home, so those, then you'd be like, why do I have to keep going into work? And so I think one of the things is to reframe it as like, what does success mean for you? And then when you know what that is, then it's very easy to establish boundaries because you're choosing it. Because you're choosing it from a framework of success, as opposed to being forced to do, like, oh, I have to do this, and it's sort of a thing. Now, again, having said that, there are certain things you just kind of have to do. There's no way to get it's very hard to, for example, if you're sort of in the sort of traditional research grant track where you want to get a K award and then use that to transition to an R award and become an independent investigator. There's certain milestones that you have to hit in general to be successful. And I think knowing how to do that in a very sort of intentional way, as opposed to it being like, oh my God, I got to do this at the last minute, final hour trying to do that. That's a very stressful place to be. And again, right now, some of you may have worries like, oh my God, I was counting on getting this done so that I could apply for my next award or next sort of funding. So again, sometimes, and that's where things like flexibility and acceptance approaches that are values driven are very helpful in that.
Okay, great. And then our next question is, how do you create time for things outside of work? Hobbies, exercise, is selecting like, okay, work out in the morning the best way to do it?
Yeah.
Or is creating a really harsh separation where, you know, you work however many hours straight and then after that is only lifetime or something else?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So again, I think my own personal example became something that was not my predicted thing. So again, the important thing is it has to be fluid, right? So right now we are all sort of, you know, for many of us, forced to be more at home than we're used to. So creating time for these things is going to be important, and that requires creativity. And I think that's where, again, having some support and guidance is helpful, because if you're used to just thinking about it in the same way, then it's the only way you're going to think, and then you'll feel frustrated. I don't have time. And one of the things I've learned in my sort of in some of the coaching sessions that I've done thus far, is helping people to think outside their usual sort of rubric of how they're used to thinking. Like, this is how I thought of, I was thinking about exercise. And there are other ways of thinking about exercise. So again, for me, I can tell you, I wasn't thinking about cooking. That was not in my framework. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh, here's a way I can cook in a way that is personally fulfilling and nourishing. And I didn't create any extra time for it. I did it in a sort of in the context of doing. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, everyone does that with their sort of chief or chair meeting and you start doing cooking, but there are sometimes new ways of doing things that you may not be expected. I would say harsh separation between work and life is, you know, as a rule, probably not healthy, only because we're one human being. It's not like we have like two halves of ourselves and like, this is my work side and this is my home side. We're one human being. And so what we do at work will transfer to home, and what we do at home transfers back to work. Having said that, again, when you know you've mapped out your path for success or what you want for success, then it's very easy to understand what things in different spaces in your life promote that. And that's the key. Everything is aligned from a values perspective. Like, this is what I want for success.
Thank you. Something else that we were asked is, how do you balance the demands of your work and stay invested in your relationships, whether it's family, living far away, or a relationship?
So important. And there is no right answer here, except to, again, sometimes, again, this is where this has been a common theme in many of the consults I've done, is like, I just, you know, I feel, one is I feel isolated and alone. And the other is like, I don't know how to, you know, keep this relationship alive or keep it, you know. And again, there is no right answer here, except that it's okay to ask for help. And I think this is one place that we can easily, you know, again, not knowing there may be things, again, in some of these coaching processes where you know the answer, but you don't know that you know it yet. And again, my job is simply to just bring it out for me. It's like, oh, this is the way I could easily do this. And again, it is so important. His first step is recognize that this is personally nourishing for you. So if that relationship is a nourishing space of your life, or it gives you a sense of meaning and purpose, then of course you want to maintain it and stay invested in it. And again, I will just give a very practical example. For me, you know, as I mentioned, I have a young daughter. That's a very important relationship. And now here I am working from home, and then trying to also manage and continue and build my relationship as a father with her. And it has involved me asking her as a 4-year-old, what is it that you want from, me, essentially is what I'm asking. What type of things? And being able to, when I ask the question, being able to respond in a way that I can actually meet her expectation. So just a simple example, today, she wanted to go she wanted to go outside with me for a walk, and she just wanted to be outside. So we went, and again, it was like finding that sort of, and it didn't require a huge amount of time, but it was like a half hour, and we went out for a walk, and it was fun. There was nothing else we did. We sort of stopped, saw a few flowers, like in our neighborhood, and there's nothing. And then she just wanted, and for her, the important thing was for being on the walk and being able to hold my hand, and that was it. And it was this, and yet that was such an important. It's an investment of a relationship. I mean, again, it's your, you think, oh, of course, it's your daughter, but all these things take like intentionality. So how are you intentional is really become key. And I'm becoming more aware of that. I'm by no means, I got a lot of ways to go, but this is, again, having outside help and support can be helpful in that.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's really, really sweet. Additionally, any tips for parents during this time?
Oh, yeah.
And this quote really stuck with me, kids home all day with nowhere to go, work needs to get done, and it feels like there's no break.
Absolutely. I can, again, relate, again, as a parent of a young child, and it's tough. I will just honor that this is a very tough thing. We're all learning in this together. There is no one strategy. I've done everything from imploring the help of all relatives. So for example, we have Zoom time with grandparents at this particular hour, then with one cousin at this time in the week, and another cousin. So that's been one thing. It's actually helped me again, for my daughter, stay connected with family members that typically we probably wouldn't have been as connected with, and that's been nice. Again, those of, depending on the age, again, age appropriate activities, certainly with, I imagine those of you with older children, and the school hopefully has provided some framework around this, although I know it's still tough even for a lot of teachers. And then there are tons of other resources, both using technology and other activities. We've compiled it on our website as well, in terms of the different like things for parents as well. And again, the list is by no means comprehensive, but again, one of the things that certainly, if there is a desire, one of the things we can do for the Office for Wellbeing is put together a parent, if there is an interest in this, we can easily put together a brainstorming session of parents of, depending on obviously the kids of different age, perhaps different age groups, depending on, so it's age appropriate activities. So yes, it's important to be a parent, and it's important to obviously get your work done, and both things can coexist. And again, I would say asking for help and support. You're not alone in this. A lot of parents, and I think the more we stay connected and help each other, the easier it is.
I'm curious if you have any, sorry, go ahead, Viv.
Yeah, so Kathy just has a question that is about time management. I will let her ask the question, but I think maybe it's interesting to go with the previous question that you talk about, like investing time in relationships and things like that. So Kathy, do you want to go ahead?
Oh yeah, sure. First of all, thank you so much for sharing all of this really valuable information with us, in particular about resources. My question is, I think, equally valid now as well as in non-corona times. Particularly in research, we have times when like one deadline is followed by the next, and you don't have really time to catch a breath in between projects. Do you have any and then it's really hard to keep a balance, feels like there's not enough time for sports, there's not enough time for relationships. Do you have small tips how to get through these times, hoping that they're out of time and it's more relaxed?
Yeah, again, it's, as you can probably relate to, everyone sort of, what is one deadline to the next is different for so individuals. So again, what my most important thing, again, take home point is ask for support and help, because it can be individualized too. Again, one of the things I learned even in my own journey, when I've asked for support, like I learned something about myself. I didn't realize like I could actually manage it this way. It was a way that I hadn't even thought of. It just simply allowed an outside perspective, again, in a non-judgmental space, to explore something with you. So there isn't, I don't think there are any sort of like cookie cutter answers here, because, you know, every person is different. Some people like to have like very like, they like when somebody is like on their case, like, okay, you're going to finish this by this and this by this and this by this, and that helps them. Other people find that to be very nagging. I you know, I don't want that. And so it's counterproductive. So again, depending on each individual's needs, we can easily customize. But the most important thing in all this, I would say, is really taking care of yourself. Obviously, if you're not able to take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to do your work well, and you'll be extremly inefficient as well in completing your work in a timely manner as well. So I hope that helps. But again, I would say definitely reach out to the office at those times. Okay,
well, thank you. That really helped. Thank you.
I have a question. It's anonymous, so I will read it out loud.
Yeah, I can read it. I can read it out loud.
So will you read it out loud?
Yeah, sure. Here's one of my pet peeves. When I tell a male colleague with kids that it presents certain challenges, and they reply, yes, they know how it is, except they have a wife who is at home or works part-time or doesn't have demand care or has a job where the norm is 40 hours. Mothers remain the default parent, even with cooperative partners. And even when they have many more than 40 hours a week careers. How would you respond to these colleagues, particularly in this time? I think, yes, I totally can relate. In full disclosure, my child is, she has, she splits her time between myself and her mom. So, we're both we're single parents, and we both have demanding jobs, and where the norm is not 40 hours. And we're trying to make this work, and it's even particularly more stressful in this time, right? So there is no response to give to the colleagues. I would just say that focus on what you need for you. I think it's, again, the important thing is really, one of the things I can at least say for my own self, and I'm speaking for my own, is that the more I pay attention to what allows me to feel good and feel like I enjoy, like I know this is stressful. I'm going to be tomorrow, I'm deployed onto the COVID floors tomorrow for the next couple of days to take care of patients. And again, that's part of and yet I enjoy my work. Like I really love going to work. I love what I'm able to do and get to do it. And it's still stressful. It doesn't make me happy that I have to go and do this work, but yet I still enjoy it. Does that make sense? So I hope, I would say there's no response needed to be given to any colleague, except to say that I'm happy that you know how it is, and just say that really for your own self is to really say, what is it I need to best take care of me? This is what I call the good selfishness, because even if you, it's like what they tell you on the airplane, you got to put on your own oxygen mask first before even your child's, because if you don't survive, there's no way your other members of your family will. So I think that's one of the things. I hope that's helpful, but really focus on you. And there are multiple resources, and you don't have to do it alone. There are multiple resources. And again, people just don't know that there is other people that can at least understand their narrative or understand their story. And it's simply, if anything, if through this office, we can bring people together, we've achieved quite a bit. Because a lot of times we just live in very isolated, like, oh, there's nobody else like me. And quite honestly, there may not be someone exactly like you, but I think there are people who share some narratives that can at least help each other and support each other. Okay, and let's see, the next question I'm just seeing on bottom. Sounds like your daughter is preschool age. Many of us parents have school age kids, yet the kids are young enough that they can't learn independently. In our family, we have to choose between doing our own work and help with the kids' distance learning. They can't both happen. So far, we're choosing our own work. The penalties for failing there are much larger. Any thoughts on how to handle the mental aspects of such a choice? Guilt. Is it the right choice? Again, yes, my daughter is preschool age. And with school-age kids, I would say, I think, again, one of the things as we think about cognitive distortions here is really about putting, I think you're putting yourself down. Again, really aligning yourself with the values. Your kid is going to be, kids are quite resilient, and they're going, so even if you think like, oh my God, these last 4 weeks, they haven't learned a thing, or they're really giving yourself a break. I suspect that you're going, you know, it sounds like you do still make choices to support their own educational process. It may not be the way you thought it, and you don't have to be perfect, but don't let perfect be enemy of the good here. I would just say, you know, you're doing the best you can. And again, ask for help, ask for support, understand, because there may be, again, resources out there. And I've already had a couple of consults where we've discussed and didn't realize, oh, wow, I could use this tool, or I could, you know, really bring in this support structure. For example, I'll just tell you very simple. I just learned today, and I think we've put it up on our website. Boston Public Library, for example, is offering free tutoring for students of all ages, and it's simply a matter of just signing up and asking, and it is, you know, it's a free resource. So that's an example. I didn't even know about that until like literally earlier today. I was like, wow, that's new. So again, you don't have to do this alone. And I think part of it is that, yes, you think like, well, I'm such a bad parent. I think when you put your intention, like I'm doing the best that I can, and I really care for my child, and then put those efforts forward, they're going to be fine. I've actually come to appreciate, to be very frank with you, that having this sort of free time, kids, if they're able to use it as a way of exploring something, they actually learn something much more differently. And certainly my daughter has learned to be healthily independent in a way that I hadn't expected prior to this. And that wasn't my intended outcome, but it's sometimes kids learn things in very different ways, and we don't give them enough credit for what they're learning as well.
Are there other questions from the audience, or shall we move on to our next? Okay. What strategies can we implement to stay on task or focused? I think that people are struggling between feeling really unmotivated or, you know, like stuck in Zoom calls all day, and then you end up not eating lunch, you know?
Yeah. Again, so yes, strategies, again, there is no one strategy. Again, everyone is very different, and you, all of you can appreciate this. All of you have learned in very different ways. And again, it has to be, any approach you take has to be consistent with the way that works for you. So again, if you feel these struggles, you're going to hear this sort of like a broken record statement: ask for help, ask for support. It's not a bad thing. It actually can be quite helpful. And I think in general, so far, people who have accessed our office, and again, have found this to be a helpful resource. It's not to say that everything has been like, oh, you figure everything out, but it's like, it puts you at least in a way that, yes, I'm taking care of myself. So very important, take care of yourself. Yeah, you shouldn't, you know, like in terms of like skipping meals in general is probably not a good thing. You know, taking breaks are important, and there's no such thing as sort of, if you're taking a break, I think again, the way this question is framed already puts it in this sort of shows our negative filter. Taking a break is a healthy thing. So there's nothing to make up. You're taking a break. You know, it's an intentional activity, and it's meant to be really a sense of rejuvenation and refreshment. So there should be no guilt around, oh, I took a break, oh my God, I've wasted time. Taking a break is an intentional act of self-care. And so the more that is placed as very helpful activities for you, then it is actually, you do your work way more efficiently. So again, the more you're able to have sense of joy and rest in this, the better it's going to be for you.
I have a question. So here you are talking about intentional break time. What happens when it's like unintentional? Is it like waste time because it just happened that you couldn't focus and you didn't do anything? Or
Yeah, so I think there's no, again, I think part of it is we're going to get into spaces where we have mental blocks. That's, for example, in writing, they call it the writer's block, or, you have these spaces where things are going to be, they happen. And that's okay. That's normal. That's a normal human experience. We all get it in different ways, depending on sort of our profession. And so, again, very important to not beat yourself up. That's where these skills building activities and perspective taking are quite important. Again, we offer courses and abilities for people to engage in these types of resiliency skills building. So it's very skillful practices. And the more you're able to sort of reframe and say, okay, you know what, it's fine. Okay, now what do I need to do to get sort of restart the engine here? Or if I felt like you hit, again, asking for help and support. If you're not able to do it on your own, ask for help. It's here. It's very much available to you. So
wonderful, thank you. So in addition to asking for some things that people are struggling with or wanted advice about, we also asked for things that they like or didn't like about working from home. And one of the things that came up nearly every time was, I miss my coworkers. And how do I miss being able to go to Viv and say, hey, Viv, what do you think about this? Instead of having to, email her and say, Viv, do you have time to talk in 20 minutes or whatever? Any tips for recreating those positive aspects of office culture?
So again, as you all can probably relate to, every office and lab are different, have slightly sort of different subcultures and stuff. But having said that, what are the spaces of joy? So it could be things like on the physician side, again, every Friday evening, we have a virtual happy hour, social hour. Everyone brings their glass of Prosecco or wine to it, and we just share stories. And it's just a story of like what happened in the week, if it's on clinical care. And again, not many people have, we have a consistent group of probably like 8 to 10 now. They kind of just the usual folks. And it's fun, and it's okay. Nobody was looking to be, if it was going to grow to be 50 physicians, great, and we would have figured it. But at this point, it's like it's like a very solid group, and every now and then somebody new joins, and it's fun to hear. Then they kind of like, oh wow, I had no idea this was happening. So again, that type of experiment, there's no reason why it can't be created on any side, on the in particular in this group. There's no reason why you can't have that, where you can just have a moment, and we don't spend more than, just to give you a sense of time, this is just a half-hour activity we do. But it's on Fridays. It's a predictable time. It's consistent, and that's the most important thing. Like, it's known, it's going to be there. It's like, and similar to sort of like, again, at this, you had almost 30 people here. Even if you had like 8 or 10 of you, like, just have a regular, like, it's known, like, okay, this is our consistent time where we just kind of hang out. It's helpful. I can tell you, for me, it's great. It's just simply just talking in a way that is very comfortable. There's no judgment. There's nothing here, and it is a very positive experience. And so that's something I can give you. It's certainly been very fun. This is, again, a physician-focused sort of happy hour, but there's no reason why any group or set of individuals can't create this type of experience.
Great. Something else that came up on the positive side is that a lot of people really don't miss their commutes. And so I'm thinking about when I return to work, how to kind of think about going to my superiors and saying, actually, I really loved working from home for this reason. Is there flexibility to be able to do this? Any
so again,
advice?
So I don't know the answer to that, because obviously it will depend on each individual situation and what is required and achieved by people coming to work. But obviously this has shifted everything. Like, I'm doing, like, on the clinical side, for example, I'm doing patient care in a way that I had never, it's like, oh yeah, that's 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, and all of a sudden, boom, it's here. Like, literally within a matter of 2 weeks, I'm now doing, like, on this Zoom platform, patient care. Now, there was no way you asked me 2 months ago, like, oh yeah, you're going to have this opportunity. Like, it took a pandemic to sort of blow that. There's no way that we're coming back from that at this point. Like, that there's no way that we're going to be coming, returning back to, oh, you're going to have to now have all your visits back to in person. There are going to be patients who say that, I live in, in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, and I don't want to come into MGH to get my care. And if it's something that I can do, I can at least have a start, virtually. It's going to be very hard to refuse. Like, say, no, you can't do that. They said, well, you guys did it before. So part of it is because there was a sense of assuming that there is success by that arrangement, that there was a sense of like, oh, there was better outcomes. Now, so outcomes are the key things. Like, what is the metric by which you measure success? And again, that differs. Like in the clinical side, it could be a patient care outcome. Like we're seeing that patients on average are accessing their healthcare provider. They're following, the recommendations. They're more compliant with their medication. Like these are some of the, I'm just giving some of the potential outcomes that people might be looking at to see why should we continue this? Because the argument was like, oh, there's nothing that compares to the gold standard of face-to-face patient care. And if that's the gold standard, then is this alternative matching that, or maybe even exceeding it sometimes? So that's the thing for you. That's the thing I would say for you to think about, like what would allow that possibility. There is obviously going to be flexibility because it's and the question is what makes it the better alternative. That's going to be important for each individual to prove.
Thank you. We just have a couple more minutes. So if anyone else has any questions, I'd like to open up the floor to them. Viv, you're muted.
We don't have any questions right now. There are only like 3 minutes left. So I don't know, Darshan, if you want to maybe comment a little bit on the exercises that you had at the end of your presentation.
Sure, yeah. We'll do a brief mind-body exercise. This is and again, just more of a taste. So what I'd like to invite everyone to do is to allow themselves to, again, wherever you might be sitting or standing or wherever you might be, hopefully not driving, allowing yourself to feel comfortable in your chair. And as you feel comfortable doing so, just allowing your eyes to gently close. Letting your hands rest in your lap or on your knees. And taking 1 or 2 deep breaths just to notice where your own breath is. And bringing your own awareness to a triangular region surrounded by the bridge of your nose, the edges of your nostrils, and your upper lip. And simply noticing your own breath as it passes through that region. Perhaps it may be fast, it might be slow, it may be deep or it might be shallow. Perhaps you may notice the gentle touch of your breath as it passes over your upper lip. But whatever you notice, allowing that to be as it is. You're not trying to change it in any way, but simply noticing it. If you notice your mind wandering, simply acknowledging that and gently but firmly bring your own awareness back to your own breath. When you feel comfortable doing so, if you've closed your eyes, allowing your eyes to gently open. Okay. So we call this in our sort of in our we call it a mini exercise. And again, very simple. People can, you don't have to buy anything, get anything. You have always access to it. And one just common space where I typically is that now that, you know, every time I log into my computer and you're sort of waiting for that, you know, things to load up, I do a mini. And we probably do that 100 times a day or maybe more. And so this gives the opportunity to build it, even if it's 10 seconds or 15 seconds or 30 seconds. And it sort of builds into a, it accumulates. So there's a cumulative effect of this. Okay. So I hope this was helpful to all of you. Thank you again for inviting me, and please do not hesitate to reach out and look forward to continued dialogues and conversation.
Thank you so much, Darshan. And thank you everybody for joining. So maybe changing topics next week, Wednesday, 5 p.m. we'll have the book club discussion with both authors of Women Don't Ask. So I hope to see you there. So we are so lucky to have the authors. So we hope to take to use as much as possible this opportunity. So thank you again, Darshan, and thank you everybody for joining. Bye.
All right. Thanks everyone. Okay, be well.